It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Bill Bagley, who is a sports business owner of Diamond Scouting. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Can you talk about, of course, how you knew that you wanted to start a sports scouting business?
Absolutely. What was so interesting to me about it is that I have always enjoyed finding real value in people, regardless of what they do. I spent a lot of time in human resources, and I spent a lot of time watching Moneyball and sports movies of that nature. And I always thought that with using psychometrics, which is just measuring behavioral traits, that there's a good way to find out and predict what somebody can bring to the table as far as performance.
Can you talk about, of course, what Diamond Scouting is?
What Diamond Scouting is it's an opportunity to find the diamonds in the rough. Now, I came up with Diamond Scouting because I primarily started in baseball. It's real easy with psychometrics to begin in baseball because of sabermetrics and the like. But how I came about with Diamond Scouting is that I've always liked that movie Aladdin, where they're always trying to find the diamond in the rough. And I think that's what I can do with psychometrics. And I do it on a daily basis with just an online assessment. It's very exciting.
That's pretty cool. How did you come up with the name for your business of scouting?
For Diamond Scouting?
Yes.
Basically, the baseball aspect of it, of course, the baseball diamond, but the ability that I have to find something that's valuable in people that is really hard for others to find.
Can you talk about the day-to-day life as a scout?
Absolutely. Here's what's interesting about psychometrics. And the first thing that I want to do, Brandon, is I want to put to bed that long $1.39 word of psychometrics. It just basically, I've tried to look for a substitute for it because everyone says psychometrics. In fact, my kids say, "Gosh, Dad, it's sometimes kind of hard to introduce you because you're a psychometrician, but the first part of your name is psycho." So anyway, I say, all right, kids, use the whole word altogether. Brandon, basically what psychometrics is the study or the metrics, the measurement of behavioral traits in people. If I know how their behavioral traits measure out, I am able to find characteristics in them that I'm able to project over a longer period of time. That's it. And when I find those characteristics, I'm able to see what they have in them. So we'll get back to the day-to-day measurement or the day-to-day activities of a psychometric scout. This is pretty much it. What I do is I will get out on Twitter and I have people that look for me, and primarily in the amateur scouting world. High school kids, AAU kids, any sport you can imagine, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, you name it. And what they will do is they will be able to fill out an assessment. I will send them an assessment, and it just takes about 8 minutes, and it's a word ranking assessment, as you know. And they send that back to me. I'm able to pull a report, and I'm also able to score it. What I do when I score it is I look for a specific behavioral pattern in the report, and I apply it to the position or to the sport that the student athlete is looking for. Then I am able to tell this is how they're going to do in this particular area over a length of time.
Can you talk about when it comes to athletes, what is the IQ? Like, how do you find the athlete's IQ?
How I find it is it's really based on the assessment. When the assessment comes back to me, I, I will begin now to compare my scouting to other types of scouts. Other types of scouts, and let's just stick with baseball for a moment because it's a very good analogy. What I'm able to do is I look for the 5 tools of behavior, just like a baseball scout looks for the 5 tools of the skill set. And in baseball, of course, you're looking for the 5 tools: hit for contact, hit for power, run, throw, and field. What I'm looking for, Brandon, is I'm looking for the 5 C's: confidence, control, composure, and coachable. You got to have coachable chemistry. And that's where you really shine. So, once again, confidence, control, composure, and coachable chemistry. If I find those high in a student athlete, then that individual will project much better to the next level, either college or pro.
Can you talk about, of course, what the process is of going to like a school to recruit or look at somebody?
That's where I have the most fun because, Brandon, I don't look for anybody when I'm at the school. What's interesting is I will go, because I have young kids, I will go to all kinds of ball games: football, basketball, baseball. And when I go to these games, I'm sitting there, and of course, there's other scouts around me, and most of them really don't know the kind of scouting that I do. So we'll just kind of sit there. But I've already seen these kids that they're scouting. I've seen them through the assessment, so I already know what to expect from this kid. What's interesting about scouting, and the reason that psychometrics works so well, is because I'm able to not just tell how a kid plays this game, I'm able to tell how he's going to play every game for the rest of his life based on that pattern. And when I see that pattern, I'm able to understand where his confidence lies. Is he composed? Because, like in baseball or basketball or any sport for that matter, at the collegiate and the pro level, there's a different mindset. And the mindset has to be that they have to be composed. They have to be able to fail well. And so the reason that I don't really scout when I go out, I never really want to look at a prospect. I don't want to see him, and the reason I don't is I don't want to be biased. I want to just let him tell me through his own scouting report, this is how I operate, Mr. Bagley. This is what's important to me, and this is what I can offer the game at the college and pro level.
Can you talk about, of course, how difficult it is, like due to COVID-19, scouting and going out to games?
I would see traditional scouting as virtually impossible because it's so difficult to go for the scout to go to the games, for them to travel the games, to the games, for them to board an aircraft. It is also so difficult for the parents to let their kids go out and get around all these people and play and practice. And it's just, this is the safest and most efficient way to scout. I'll give you an interesting example. I have a friend of mine that is a scout for the Boston Red Sox, and he's done it for a number of years. And he tells me that basically he will scout anywhere from 50 to 500 players a year. So you're looking for around 500 players a year, but he's a professional scout. I'm an amateur scout. So I asked him, I said, how many would an amateur scout look at? And he said, all they can do is probably about 200 a year. Well, Brandon, in December of this year, this month, I've already scouted 162 players. I have the scouting reports on over 100 players, and out of them, I have found about 70% of those 100 players are projectable to the next level.
Can you talk about, of course, with you being a primarily baseball scout, How do you work with other scouts like in the MLB to like, of course, because I know that high school athletes can, if they want and if they're good enough, can make it to the pros without even going to college.
Absolutely. I do not. I do not really reinforce that in the kids, because most of the kids that I have, I'll kind of put them under my wing, if you will, and I'll give them a few tips that will really help them. And what's interesting is every now and then you're going to find a phenomenal in skill set. You know, the skill set is just absolutely magnificent. And it just will really kind of rise above everything else. And so teams will pour everything that they've got into a kid in baseball because of his skill set. And a perfect example is where my kids go to school right now. Noah Syndergaard from the Mets was actually he was drafted out of high school at the high school here in Texas, and it's very rare that happens. I really don't encourage it, but what they're primarily looking for is they're looking for someone who is off the charts in skill set, and they'll bring that individual in, and then they're just hoping that the mindset is there. And if I run something past them, I'll be able to confirm that.
Can you talk about, do you only scout out baseball players, or do you scout out other players such as basketball, softball, and soccer and football?
I scout all of them, because the same five mindset, I call that the mindset profile. The same mindset works the same in every single sport. And since I'm looking at high school and amateur sports, of course, I am always looking with I want that individual to be able to move to the next level and then continue to move on, because you've got builders and you've got maintainers. And so you want to be able to build somebody, but they can maintain their level through the sport. It's interesting that you mentioned other sports other than baseball, because actually my favorite example of how psychometrics would have just nailed an athlete and traditional scouting failed the athlete is Tom Brady. When Tom was signed, when he was scouted and drafted, rather, when he was drafted, it was in 2000, and Tom was drafted in the 199th position in the 6th round of the draft. So anyway, I later found out what his psychometric profile is. There is no way that with that psychometric profile that he would have escaped the early rounds of the first draft. There's no way. But the reason that he scouted so poorly is because of his abysmal performance at the NFL Combine. He's not an athlete. I mean, at least he wasn't then. But he had the mindset for the game at that level that is just absolutely off the charts. And to think, Brandon, that could have been detected with an 8-minute online assessment.
That's pretty cool. What can you talk about? What are some of your other favorite sports to scout and besides baseball?
Sure. I love to scout basketball. Basketball is really interesting. Um, Football, American football, soccer. Love to scout. I love to scout women's sports. Women's sports are real interesting. Baseball, softball for them, volleyball, any kind of team sport and individual sport does extremely well. I do want to take this opportunity to say that when I do scout teams, I work a lot with individuals, but every now and then what I'll do is I'll go to a team and I will scout all their players and I'll scout all their coaches. The most important one to begin with is really the coach. I've got to profile him first. And the reason I do that is because that's where all the strategy of the team is coming from. So the coach comes up with the strategy. I know what that strategy is. And then the team executes that strategy. And when you have that good combination, and it really doesn't compete with each other, it really kind of blends and folds into one another, then you've got a championship team right there.
When it comes to scouting, do you only scout them out one time, or do you scout them out at least twice due to maybe somebody might had a bad day and it might actually show that they had a bad day versus whenever they're actually playing on a good day, they're like a pretty good player?
You know, Brandon, I used to. Years ago, I did. I would pull more than one profile on a kid. I no longer do that. And the reason that I don't is because the profiles right now, with technology, it has come so far. You know, that assessment that you took that just took a few minutes to rank those words, that used to be a 500 question test that would take you 3 hours to go through. And they boiled it down to that. So they've made the survey is what you respond to. They've made the survey so accurate that you're able to do it with just that little test. So I just need one. Got another example for you, and it just happened yesterday. I get a tweet from a kid. He wants to fill out the assessment. I send him the assessment. He sends it back to me. He is a catcher and a pitcher on his team. And so I see his profile and I go, holy mackerel, I got to find out more about this kid. So anyway, I tweet him and we start up a conversation. And this son of a gun, as a catcher and he profiles like Corey Kluber as a pitcher and like Buster Posey as a catcher. And this is a phenomenally successful profile for a baseball player in any position. But as far as pitcher and catcher goes, incredible. So anyway, what's interesting about it is that Brandon, he's 12. The kid is 12. I don't need all that performance and all that stats and all those games and showcases and all that to see his profile, to see how he's going to do, because that profile is going to be pretty much hardwired by the time he is in middle school. It's hardwired to about 90%. So there's not going to be much change all the way through his career and all the way through to the rest of his life. That's what's stable. Now, his performance will change, but his profile and how he handles that performance is very stable. It will not change over time appreciably.
That's amazing. What advice would you give upcoming scouts looking to get into professional scouting?
The first thing I do is I'd look at it from a student athlete perspective. I mean, there's a few things I can give you. There's like 2 or 3 things that I can tell you on this, on your show here. And if it translates to the athlete, they will be much more successful. And it really comes with Twitter. Number one, when you have your name on Twitter, also include next to your name, your email address. Always do that. And the reason is because I, like other teams and other scouts, am looking for immediate ways to connect with a player. That's another one. Here's something else. And you see this missed a lot. If a student has a 3.0 plus grade point average, whatever they do, they need to publish that, because that's what colleges are telling us. Colleges are saying, hey, we want these great athletes. We really do. But they've got to have the grades for the program. And when they do, it actually makes them a much better athlete. What I would tell a scout to do first is to find the teams, is to benchmark, is to find championship teams like I have. I have gone out, I have sought out championship teams, and I simply tell them, I want to benchmark. I want to profile your players and profile your coaches, and I will be able to tell you how successful you're going to be. And so I've got several baseball teams. I've got the most successful 5A football team on the planet, and that is the Pulaski Academy Bruins out of Little Rock, Arkansas. It is coached by Kevin Kelly, and Kevin Kelly is the no punt coach. He's the one that never punts. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he is just absolutely, his team is fantastic at what he does. So what I'll do is I'll take the coaches, I'll take the players, and I will profile them. We'll see, Brandon, I'm able to get a score off of that profile. And when the score comes in, another example, I'll just kind of throw this in as a sidebar. I had a kid last week that scored a 141 on this profile. Let me get that in perspective. He is a freshman in high school. He is in the class of 2024. This rascal scores a 141. Average in NCAA, in college, and in pro is 100. That's average. He scores a 141. You know what those numbers are? Those are Mike Trout numbers. Mike Trout has that profile. Those are Mike Trout. So here I've got a kid who has a handful of at-bats. Are you still there?
Yes.
Has a handful of at-bats. And Brandon, I can't get back. Where am I? There you are. Okay. I hope that's going to be okay. He has a handful of at-bats, and now you've looked at Mike Trout. Well, Mike Trout is one of the best players ever, and this kid has the potential to do the same thing. And plus, he has an interest in baseball. So he has an interest in baseball. He has a profile like Mike Trout. The chances is that he is going to do extremely well at that sport if he chooses to stay in baseball. See how fun it can be?
That's amazing.
And I've never met him. But I can't wait to. So his dad calls me up and he said, how do you know this? So I explained it to him. And he said, would you please send that information to, they've given me 10 colleges that they want me to send that information to. And so I'm about halfway through it. And so I send that information to them, and see, he didn't graduate for 4 more years. And so when he graduates, then there's a great opportunity. I know he is going to be recruited. Absolutely. If he wants to stay in baseball, he is going to be recruited.
Can you talk about, of course, like working with colleges? What is that like as a scout, like for amateurs?
Working for colleges?
Yeah, like as a scout for amateurs, what is it like whenever you connect with college scouts to help, of course, the players get recruited?
Well, actually, what college scouts have done with me is they will tell me, they say, Bill, I'm looking at this kid and I want your opinion on him. And sometimes they'll expect me to go watch him play, but then I briefly explain, no, that's not what I do. Just have him fill out this 8-minute assessment. And then I will get this back. And then we will talk about it. I will tell them, I will say, here's some areas of the game. And in baseball, it's real interesting, Brandon, because the game is so, you're either on offense or you're on defense. You're never on the same at the same time. There's a big gap between those two as to when you're playing that. And so I can tell you that this is going to be a good defensive player. He's going to be a good offensive player, or he's going to be a good pitcher. And I can really drill down. They say, hey, we're looking at this kid. He's a pitcher. What can you tell about how he's going to be able to project? I can tell you, I say, look, if he develops a fastball, he's going to have a good fastball. But with this particular guy, don't worry too much about the speed. Look at the command. He's got the command of pitches. He knows where he is in the strike count. I can see that in that profile, that he's got the ability to say, hey, I know where I am in the strike count. This kid's got a slider coming. And you can see things like that, because what's interesting about psychometrics is that if I have the psychometric profile of an amateur, I am able to predict his outcome at the next level. Okay. But if I already have the statistical performance, and I know the performance of a veteran ball club member, then I can go back and say, hey, only a certain pattern could have produced that, such as I do with Mike Trout. there's only going to be one pattern that is able to produce what he's capable of. And so when this kid that I have found in high school, when he has it, then it's easy to predict that he could possibly go along the same line as Mike Trout.
Before COVID, did you used to travel like all over the world to find players?
Never. They find me. Especially with Twitter, because when I see them, when they ask to be followed on Twitter, what I consider that an honor. If somebody wants to follow me, it's an honor. So I'll open it up. I'll send them. Actually, what I need is just their email address. Just like I did with you. Send me your email address, and I'll send you the assessment. They'll do it all day long. I did 20 of them yesterday because kids didn't have anything to do on Sunday, so they jumped on Twitter and they went to work for me. But then I've got that profile. I get the profile in, and then the rest is easy. But I don't really have to go any further than that. I don't watch video. I don't want to see video, because Brandon, the problem with video and the problem that going to games and going to showcases and the like is that you have a real tendency to get a bias. You get a bias on a kid, because whenever you see a video on a kid that he's sending a scout or he's sending a team for consideration, you never see him strike out. I mean, he's always grand slamming. You never see the kid strike out. And that's really what I've got to know how he's going to behave when he strikes out. And coaches want to know that too. So it's not just, if I had to go watch him at the game, I would cross my fingers, Brandon. I would cross my fingers that the kid would go 0-4 instead of 4-0. And of course I wouldn't want to do that. But the reason I'd want to do that is I'd want to see how he handles it. That's part of composure. You can melt down in high school to some degree, but you cannot melt down as an athlete in college and pro. You cannot. It will not work. And so I've got to find out the meltdown ability of that player before we get him to college or pro.
That's pretty cool. Where can my listeners find Diamond Scouting on social media, along with if you have a website?
I don't even have a website, and I don't want one. I did at one time. It got way too confusing. I do everything through Twitter. All my marketing, all my connections with my players and coaches. They can find me at Bags2358. That's it. That is my Twitter handle. Did I say that right? Twitter handle?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm getting used to this, but it's BAGS2358.
Thank you again, Bill, for your interview, and best of luck in the Diamond Scouting business.
Brandon, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Bill, for your interview, and best of luck in the scouting business.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.